Pedro from A&P-REACTS. I'm here today with Erlend from Hjelvik to talk about Welcome to Hell, out November 20th on Nuclear Blast. How's it going?
I'm good. Just busy rolling out to release these days, but yeah, feels good. I look forward to finally getting the album out. So,
Are you excited to see the days coming closer and closer to that date? Then finally everybody's going to be able to listen to this new record.
yeah, because I've been listening to the album for over a year now, so it's good to finally get to share it with people. So.
Let me ask you about this record. I felt that the album was very diverse from a sound perspective. Do you see it that way, or how would you define the overall soundscape of this album?
Yeah, it turned out a lot more diverse than I expected to initially, which I think is a good thing. I think it makes the album sound more dynamic, and I like that the songs are all different. That's kind of something I noticed on like a lot of older bands that I like. They have different sounding songs. I think a lot of bands make the mistake of putting out an album and the same. I don't.
Yeah, you kind of did, and to further into that point is, what do you think is the element that provides that diversity to the record? Is it the guitars? Is it the drums? Is it how the record is recorded? In your mind, where is that diversity coming from?
I think it's the songwriting, because we didn't like do any tricks or anything to the sound. Like the sound setup was pretty much the same for every song, so it's just from the writing is where the diversity comes from.
Did you go into the record feeling that that's exactly what you were going to get out, or when you started recording, that's when you kind of realized that, wow, this is a lot different now that we can actually hear it versus when we had everything on paper?
I wouldn't say it was like too much of a leap from how the demos were sounding to the actual finished product, except yeah, obviously better sound and stuff. But I think that it was the same kind of atmosphere in a way. So, yeah.
How is the creative process behind an album like this? How do you start working on an album? Like, how do you put all your ideas, everything that's floating in your mind, into execution?
Yeah, it was a pretty organic process writing it. After I left my old band in 2018, I took a couple of months off after that, where I didn't do anything at all. I just did work on the house and just normal stuff and listening to music a lot. And then slowly I just started getting inspired again to write music, and I started learning recording software. So that was a tiny barrier I had to get over. But I would say at the start of 2019, I started writing music, and Kveldulv, which is the 8th track on the album, that's the first song I wrote, and I was happy with how that sounded. And then I wrote one more, and then I wrote, and that was North Tsar. And I think that's when I figured, like, okay, I'm gonna write a whole album now, because I like how this is sounding, and yeah, it was fun to do as well. So I spent about 6 months from early 2019 till the summer, and yeah, in that time frame, I had written all the lyrics and the music. So
That's an exciting process. Were you a little bit worried because you started with one song, then next thing is 2 songs, then it's 3 songs, then you're like, okay, now I have an album. I need to do an album. Did that worry you a little bit that, again, now I'm going to put myself into the position where I'm going to push myself into creating a whole record?
Not really, because no one knew what I was doing except my wife. So I didn't feel any pressure. Like, people. I don't think people were expecting me to come back with a solo band or whatever. So no, I didn't feel any pressure at all. I was just focusing on having fun, and I was enjoying the whole writing process. So yeah, I was just having fun with it.
One of the interesting things about the album for me was when I started listening to the record, I thought I was going to listen to a very specific style album. And then by the time I finished the album, I was like, I don't even know what genre this record is going to be falling under. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because I
Yeah.
think the album is good for what it is, for the record that it is. And once you start trying to pigeonhole it into a specific genre, then you're going to start taking things off of the album that it's actually giving life to the album. So do you have an idea of what genre this album is going to be under, or are you creating your own genre?
Yeah, what I came up with, which I thought was the best fit, was Black and Viking heavy metal. And at its core, I feel like all the, like you said, all the songs are pretty different, and it's kind of hard to pigeonhole it. But I think at its core, all the songs are heavy metal based, so it just made sense to call it that. And then I call it Blackened because there's a lot of black metal elements, and especially my vocals, I would say they're in the black realm. And the Viking part comes from me singing about Norse mythology, even though I wouldn't say a lot of the music sounds like Viking metal, like maybe except for North Star. I think that's maybe the most Viking sounding song on the album. But what is Viking metal anyway? It's you have the old Battery records, and you have Amon Amarth and Heilung. Like everything's totally different. So yeah, I don't even know what it is totally.
Is it for you maybe Viking metal more of an attitude than necessarily a musical style?
Yeah, for me it is more relating to the content, and yeah, I would say attitude as well.
The record has a lot of interesting elements. You touched on one, which is your vocals. Did you have an idea of what you wanted out of your vocals before recording, or did you allow the process to be more organic?
Well, I have my style of singing, and like that's not something I've really been working on. It's just kind of developed naturally over the years as I've been doing it. And I feel like I get better all the time, especially on this record, because I don't smoke anymore, which has helped a lot. Before, I used to have a struggle a lot more with getting worn out in the studio and stuff because I was smoking cigarettes and not really taking care of my voice. So it was a lot better this time. I'm sorry, I forgot the question.
No, it was about your vocals, and in terms if you had a roadmap for what you wanted out of them, or if you allowed yourself to be a little bit more organic. The reason I'm asking this is because I felt that in some songs, you kind of departed a little bit ever so slightly, almost to go more with the mood of the track and the story within the track, almost to bring the lyrics to life. So I felt that you were not restrained and you're like, okay, this is how I sounded on the first song, this is how I'm going to sound on every single song. You took a few more liberties as you progressed through the record.
Okay, yeah. I try to, of course, I try to match what's happening in the music. So I think especially like on 12 Spell is probably a song where I change, like where I kind of deviate the most from what I normally do, where I just needed to sound a little more evil. Other than that, I just try to make. I kind of focused on making sure that people could kind of tell the lyrics a little better too. So I paid some attention to that the words were coming through in an intelligible way too. Actually, this time. So.
How big of a role is that on this album? The lyrics and the stories that you're telling with these songs?
Well, I think it's as important as anything else. It's, like cover artwork, music, lyrics, it's all kind of like equally important in my world. Like everything is like a way, it's a part of the package or the puzzle. I think it's very important, and that's why I'm happy to be singing in English now, because it felt like a wait before to write lyrics in Norwegian and only have Norwegian people understand it, and then the rest of the world has to read Google Translate stuff, which usually doesn't work. So, I'm happy to sing in English now.
How big of a part of your life is Norse mythology? Is that an important part, or is more of a musical inspiration part of your life?
Yeah, it's mostly related to music, but I've had some experiences where it makes me think that there's definitely something there. And I guess I hold Odin as kind of a patron god, where I have some rituals where I give wine to a Odin statue that I have, just to make sure everything goes smoothly with the album. So it's been working out so far.
Within the whole Norse mythology, is there a specific story or a specific myth that touches you, that it's special to you?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to choose, but yeah, to me, I like the Ragnarok stories the most because I like the whole concept of death and rebirth, which is pretty much prevalent in any story in Norse mythology, and the whole outlook the Vikings had on life. You know, with someone's being born and then they take up the name of the grandfather and they're kind of like reborn that way. So all that stuff is interesting to me. So yeah, I just like the cyclical element, and like in the Ragnarok story where they all die, but then they have this big battle and everyone dies, but then there's a few people who still survive and they find like the remains of the old gods and then they start again. So I think that's cool.
Was there any? I mean, this album is all about stories. It's all about Norse mythology. When you're putting it together and you're putting all these lyrics together, was there one that you wanted to include on the record, but you weren't able to work it into the album, or what we got in the record is exactly what you had in mind?
No, there wasn't any superfluous material like that. There's one song that didn't make it just because it didn't fit in with the rest. But yeah, no, I'm really happy. I did that on purpose. I made the amount of songs that I made so I could have some more to choose from, because I never set out to make a really long record. I think 39 minutes is like the perfect running time. So yeah, it was just good to have a backup song. just so you have something to work with. Yeah.
You can always release it next year as part of a special EP or something like that.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm sure. Yeah.
With everything that's happening, if there's one thing everybody's going to have is probably time, and there's no tours in sight, so maybe down the road that will be something to look forward to.
Yeah, I'm sure there will be some point in time where it will be cool to dig up that old song. So.
One of the other elements outside of your vocals, the storytelling aspect, the fluidity of the record, the diversity of the sound, is the guitars on this album. I was really intrigued, specifically when you look at the guitar solos. I mean, this album has incredible guitar solos from top to bottom. Actually, far better than what I was expecting coming in, because I was expecting things to be a little bit more rugged. And when it got to the solos were just out of this world, like incredible.
Cool.
How do you feel about the overall guitar sound on this record, and then the work that went into the solos?
Yeah, I feel really good about it. I'm happy with the solos I made, and then I'm really happy with how Rob Steinway is playing it. I think he's doing an amazing job of taking what I wrote and just, yeah, he plays it really well, so it sounds amazing. And I'm really happy with the solos that Matt Pike did on Glory of Hell. That was a really cool experience when they came into the studio, because he improvised the solo on the spot. So he did like 15 takes in a row, and they were all sounding good, and all of them were different. So it's kind of hard to choose the best one afterwards. So yeah. So that was cool to watch him work like that, because I'm totally opposite. I can't improvise on the spot like that, especially, in front of people. I like to work by myself. Yeah. And Mike Scalzi, he did some great solos too, and he worked in a different way, more like a mad professor, where he just layered lots of different guitar melodies on top of each other, and it just ended up sounding pretty insane. So.
When you walk into the studio, what's the favorite thing for you working in that environment?
Oof, that's kind of hard to answer, but I think my favorite part is when the songs start taking shape. So that's after the drums are done and you start getting the guitars down and you can hear how it's gonna be. That's my favorite part.
Is there something you completely dislike, and you're like, oh, today I have to do this, and it's like the least favorite thing about putting an album together?
I guess It would be doing the vocals. That's where I feel the most pressure because I got sick 2 times, and then that's something I worry about is getting sick and then not having enough time to do the vocals because, there's time constraints because you have booked so this much. Yeah, you booked a certain time. So that's just something that I worry about, and then because of that, I probably end up getting sick. But yeah, so I got sick twice while I was doing vocals, so I kind of had to just postpone things in a way, and I still had some vocals to do after we started mixing, but it worked out totally fine in the end. So.
As now the album is finished, it's just around the corner. November 20th is just really around the corner.
Yeah.
Look back, do you see this as an album where you allowed yourself to rediscover yourself? Is this a rebirth of who you are as an artist?
I feel like it is, but at the same time, I feel like I'm doing what I've always been doing. Like in my old band, I wrote the lyrics, and I had my stage persona and my vocals, and my influence in that band. I feel like what I did there, I'm doing like at full blast, 100% this time around. So it still feels like I'm doing the same thing in a way, only I added some more work to the list. So
yeah, you just added more roles and more things that you need to do.
Yeah.
Your workload increased.
Yeah, I would say so, but I think that's a great thing, and yeah, I can handle it, and it feels good. So
when you look at this record, is this album also an image of you or an image of everybody who worked on it?
It's probably got mostly it's mostly an image of me, but of course, the guys that play on it, they have their playing style, so of course they leave their fingerprints on it like that. But yeah, since I wrote all the music and the lyrics and everything else with the cover art or whatever, it feels like it's mostly an image of me. So
last question for you, and that is, with the album once again just around the corner, November 20th on Nuclear Blast, what are your expectations for this release?
I hope people will discover the band and like what they're hearing, hopefully. Yeah, I hope they agree with my opinion because I really like the music myself, so I hope people share the same opinion. And yeah, sorry, I trailed off again. It's getting a little late here. So.
It's fine. It's fine.
Your last interview of the day. So.
Yeah, it's just basically I just really wanted to see where you're like. Are you nervous about it? I mean, this album obviously means a lot to you. It's an important step in your career as an artist.
Yeah.
It's an album that I felt it had a lot of you in it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where my question was coming from.
Is
based on all of that, like, what are your high goal expectations coming into this record or coming out of this record?
Well, obviously, I hope that we're gonna get lots of people buying the album and enjoying it, and then finally, when it comes time to tour, that lots of people will show up and support the band. When it comes to the question about being nervous, I don't feel nervous about putting the actual album out. I was maybe a little nervous before launching the whole thing and the first single, North Star. But yeah, I feel like that was the worst part, getting that out of the way. So I'm pretty confident about the album. And yeah, I've been getting some good reports already. The first few reviews that I've read have been great, so that's a good feeling. So
yeah, not that the cat is out of the bag. The hardest thing is over. Now it's just a little bit of sitting back and perhaps enjoying the fruits of your labor.
Yeah, exactly. It feels like a relief, honestly, to finally get it out. Because, like I told you earlier, I've been listening to it for a year, so it's you can start getting a little crazy from listening to it that much. So I'm happy to get it out, and it's going to be fun to see what people think.
Well, Erlend, I want to thank you very much for taking the time today to talk to me about Welcome to Hell. Hjelvik comes out November 20th on Nuclear Blast. I absolutely love the record. I think you guys did a phenomenal job with the album. Like I said, it's very diverse, but it still feels as a record. There's enough elements in this album that even though it's diverse, it doesn't feel like just a collection of songs. It feels like you're listening to a full-length album. So
Cool.
Congratulations on the record.
Thanks. I really appreciate it. That's good to hear.
Well, take care. Stay safe and stay healthy.
You too. Stay safe and take care. Okay,
Bye.
nice to talk to you.
Bye.